Hello. This week in class, we have begun a conversation and begun exploring business opportunities. We're trying to determine what's an opportunity, what's an idea, where can we find something that we can dig our teeth into and actually create into a viable, feasible, sustainable business. And in the process of doing that, we are going to be having to not only convince ourselves, but also convince others that this is an opportunity that is worth pursuing. And so doing, as part of our first progress report, we are going to have to complete what is called an environmental scan. This is something that some of you may be familiar with from your studies in marketing. In an environmental scan, what we're trying to do basically is look at some of those outside influences, things that we do not have any control over. But these influences are applying pressure on our markets, applying pressure on the customers that we hope to serve. And these pressures are then impacting the decision-making process of the people that we hope to serve. How did they spend the money? I have this problem. Do I want to solve it? How much am I willing to spend on this problem? And all of these outside influences are impacting that. When we look at those impacts, we can use what's called a PESTLE model. Sometimes it's shortened to just PEST, PESTLE. It's an acronym that stands for political, economic, social, cultural, technological, legal, environmental. Okay? So 6 different categories. Now, when we think about our business opportunity in light of the pressures of being put on our market based on in each one of these categories, we can assess whether our opportunity is really a solid opportunity, right? Something we can really turn into one of that scalable business. Now, to demonstrate this, I'd like to share this little picture here. So this is a simple latex balloon, right? And I like the balloon because it's nice and round, and it can easily demonstrate the market, that group of people, whether it's geographic, demographic, or just that market or that group of people that you wish to serve. Now, if you remember anything at all about your early physical science, you will recall that one of the key properties of a fluid is that it takes on the shape of its container. The challenge we have here, as we'll see, is that those outside pressures we're talking about are going to impact the shape of that container. And it's based on that we can begin to look at and understand the opportunities that are present based on those outside pressures. So let's have a look at that. How does it look? Well, let's start with political. And if we look at here, so by outside pressures here, I'm just using a simple elastic to demonstrate, to apply some outside pressure to our market here. And the first one, when we look at political markets, we're looking at political influences. We are thinking about those things, those decisions that people in government make and bureaucracies make that impact our business. Right now, both at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels, we are in a state of emergency, which gives each level of those governments powers to make decisions for the benefit of the community without consultation from the community. Now, some of those decisions are very good, very important decisions. Others of them we may not agree with, but they are decisions and they are having huge impact. We can see the different approaches of the different types of governments at the different levels in terms of their ideology. Prior to COVID-19, there was a lot of debate around the benefits about the efficacy and the benefits of the policy that our Premier, Doug Ford, had on our current economy. Those are political forces. We can then also look at economic forces. This is a huge impact today with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of you have been impacted economically. Some of you may have had your hours cut back, or you may have lost your jobs completely. I don't think there's a business out there that has not been impacted by COVID-19, positively or negatively, and mostly negatively. More importantly, I don't think there's a human being here in this country who has not been economically impacted by COVID-19. It has changed because of the restrictions in terms of what's open and how we shop and how much money we're expected to be able to make, not just today, but down the road, and what's going to happen with those interest rates and how much debt we carry. Those are having huge stressful impacts on many people. There are many people who are retired living on investment income, and when the pandemic hit, their income return rates went way down, impacting their potential length of how long they can afford to live the way that they're doing. From there, we can look at social cultural trends. For this, I got to use pink. Okay. So when we look at social cultural trends, here we're looking at what's happening within our community on that social level. Anybody who has a social media presence of any kind has been influenced and is influencing decisions of people in terms of how they buy, how they solve the problems that they have. It's interesting as well in the social cultural environment. If we take a look, for example, many of you in our class are fairly new to Canada as international students. You've arrived here in a brand new culture. People dress differently, we speak differently, we do things, we make our decisions differently. Perhaps you have greater freedoms. Right? So how has your buying and your spending habits, how have they changed since arriving here in Canada? And for those of you who have grown up here in Canada, think about how your buying habits, your spending habits have changed, and what influences you have from cultural forces, from social forces in terms of how you buy what it is that you buy. We can then look at perhaps at technology. There are many, many technological changes in our community. In fact, we live in the heart of the technology triangle. And when we think about technology and how it has impacted, how it impacts each and every one of us and those people in your market, what's changed? If you're thinking of an idea in the retail sector and you want to open up a big box store like Costco or Walmart, and that doesn't fit, but if that's what you wanted to do, is that really going to fit given the technology? How many people have adjusted to shopping online as opposed to shopping in a big box store? Those are some interesting things that we can explore. Technology, the Internet of Things, is making our lives, impacting our lives as consumers very differently, especially now that we have to stand in line in order to buy what it is that we want to buy. The other day, I was having to get some special light bulbs for my office here, and I thought I could just pick them up at the dollar store. I was willing to wait in line for 10 minutes to see if I can get a deal there. I discovered they didn't have the bulbs that I needed. And then I drove over to Canadian Tire, knowing full well that they had the bulbs that I wanted. And I saw the line, 45 minutes to an hour, just to get into the store. Not including the amount of time it would have taken for me to stand in line waiting to pay for those bulbs that I want. So I came home. 5 minutes later, I was online at Amazon and had my bulbs ordered. They were delivered on Sunday and everything's just fine. And I did not have to stand in line. How has technology impacted your shopping patterns? From there, we can begin looking at things such as legal. There are a lot of things that are going to be regulations. Many of our businesses here in Canada are going to have regulations in place. Showing up with if you show up for work, ensuring that you have your proper PPE, personal protective equipment, not just for construction and factories anymore, right? Showing up for work with a mask, with gloves, and being prepared to abide by those rules. Restaurants, when they do get the opportunity to open up, will actually only be allowed to open up to 50% capacity. That's a legal issue. Do you understand? What legal issues are impacting the industry and the type of opportunity that you are exploring? Finally, let's look at environmental. We live in a world where every time every time a new report comes out, we're seeing that our world is very fragile, and people, as consumers, as people within our market, are becoming considerably more conscientious about what they spend their money on. In terms of does this actually ruin the planet, or does it help the planet in any way? This is not just greenwashing. This is actual, I care about having a world for my grandchildren to live in. So for those of you who would like to set up a car dealership or would like to sell used cars, especially given the environmental trend, do you really want to be selling Hummers and great big V8, V12 pickup trucks to people who are environmentally conscious? That's probably not going to happen. So there we have it. We have a simple acronym. We've looked at political, economic, social, cultural, technological, legal, and environmental trends. Do some exploring, do some reading, do some digging, and find out what some of those trends are in the industry that you wish to establish an opportunity. And then see how they impact the shape of the community, the market that you are going to be working in. And from there, you can see whether your idea is actually going to fit. Chances are very likely you'll also find some new opportunities based on looking at these ideas and the way that they overlap and intersect. I hope this was helpful. I hope you have fun. I look forward to hearing what you come up with. Take care.